You are not as free as you think. Nobody is. The invisible cage is everywhere. You were born into it. You didn't notice. Neither did anyone else. But today, we're going to break down those invisible walls and show you how the machine actually operates. Stick around, because once you see the cage, you can never unsee it, and you'll want to subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the forces pulling your strings. Okay? So here's a scenario. You're at a concert. Thousands of people around you. Someone in the front row starts swaying. Then the person next to them. Then the next. Within 2 minutes, an entire section of the venue is moving together, and nobody planned this. Nobody sent a group chat. Nobody gave a speech. It just happened. Now ask yourself, who decided that? Was it you? Was it them? N. Was it anyone? N. Welcome to sociology. The science of the invisible hand, not the economics one. Adam Smith can stay in his lane. But the invisible hand that shapes literally everything you do every day, and you never once noticed it was there. So what even is sociology? Great question. Here's what it's not. It's not psychology. Psychology asks why you act weird. Sociology asks why everyone acts weird at the same time, in the same direction, for reasons none of them fully understand. It's the study of how humans behave when you get them in groups. And spoiler, groups are terrifying. The whole field basically started because of one French guy. His name was Émile Durkheim. You don't need to know that name for a test, but you do need to know what he did because it changed everything. In 1897, this man looked at suicide data, which dark, and noticed something wild. Wah. The rate at which people killed themselves changed based on their social environment. People with less community connection did it more. That was the moment sociology was born. The realization that even the most personal, individual act a human can do is shaped by society. Your behavior is not just yours. The group gets a vote. Always. That's a little disturbing when you sit with it. So let's go smaller before we go bigger. Let's start with you. Right now. You are a social animal. Biologically, not metaphorically. Your brain is physically built to scan rooms, read faces, track hierarchies, and constantly calculate where you stand relative to other people. This is not a character flaw. This is a survival mechanism your ancestors evolved over 200,000 years. Back on the savannah, being rejected from the group meant death. So your brain treats social rejection like a physical threat, because once upon a time, it was one. Here's the thing though. That hardware, the social scanning, the hierarchy detection, the desperate need to belong, that hardware is running in a world that is 10,000 times more complex than the savannah it was designed for. You are a caveman brain inside a modern social machine. And the machine has rules. A lot of them. Rules you didn't write. Rules nobody sat you down and explained. Rules you just absorbed. By watching. By imitating. By being told, over and over, this is how things are done. Sociologists call these rules norms. And norms are genuinely one of the most powerful forces on the planet. They're more powerful than laws in a lot of cases. You can break a law and get away with it. You break a norm, and the social punishment, the looks, the whispers, the quiet exclusion hits immediately. No trial. No jury. Just vibes. Pure, devastating vibes. Want to test this? Then tomorrow, get in an elevator. Face the wrong way. Stand with your back to the door, facing the other people inside. Don't say anything. Don't explain. Just stand there. I am telling you, the discomfort in that elevator will be so thick you could cut it with a knife. Nobody will say anything either. But everyone will be screaming internally. That is a norm violation. That is the invisible grid of society, briefly, awkwardly, made visible. Wow. And here's the first thing that should blow your mind a little bit. You follow these norms every day without thinking. You know exactly how loud to talk in a library versus a football game. You know how close to stand to a stranger versus a friend. You know when it's okay to eat with your hands versus when you need a fork. None of this was in a manual. All of it was in the culture around you. It got into your brain like background software that you never agreed to install. So okay, you've got individual humans. They've got this social brain. They've absorbed norms. Now what happens when you put a bunch of them together? And does it just add up? And is a crowd just a big person? And no. No, it is absolutely not. And that's where things get very weird. A crowd is not a big person. A crowd is a completely different organism. And the moment you understand this, you will never look at a group of humans the same way again. Here's a question. Have you ever done something in a group that you would never do alone? And be honest. You got louder. You went along with something. You laughed at a joke you didn't think was funny. You stayed silent when you should have spoken up. That is not weakness. That is a fundamental feature of human psychology that sociologists have been documenting for over 100 years, and it has a name: conformity. And conformity is not the exception. It is the default setting. In the 1950s, a psychologist named Solomon Asch ran a wild experiment. He showed people a line. Then he showed them 3 other lines and asked, which one is the same length? N. It's obvious. One of them is clearly the same. Easy answer. But there's a catch. Everyone else in the room, who are secretly in on it, confidently gives the wrong answer first. And here's the thing. About 75% of people gave the wrong answer at least once. They could see the right answer. They knew the right answer. And they still went with the group, because the social pressure of being wrong alone felt worse than being wrong together. We live in a society, and society will make you doubt your own eyes. Now scale that up. 1 person conforming to 10 people is a study. 10 million people conforming to a shared set of ideas, values, and behaviors? N. That's a culture. And culture is the water you swim in. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You literally cannot step outside of it because it is inside you. It built your instincts. It loaded your default assumptions. Culture is the operating system, and you are running on it right now, and you did not choose to download it. This is where sociology gets genuinely philosophical for a second. Because here's the question, is anything you believe actually yours? N? Like, your taste in music? Did you develop that? N? Or did you absorb it from the environment you were raised in, the friends you had, the media you consumed? N. Your opinions about work ethic. Your ideas about what a family looks like. Your instinct about what counts as rude or polite. These are all products of socialization, the lifelong process of a society installing its values into you. It starts before you can talk. It never stops. And here's where it gets actually insane. Ready for the awe moment? This one is real. Wow. There are about 8 billion people on Earth right now. Every single one of them was born with essentially the same basic brain hardware, same emotional architecture, same social instincts, same capacity for language and empathy and creativity. And yet, those 8 billion people organize themselves into thousands of different cultures, with different values, different family structures, different ideas of beauty and honor and justice, many of which directly contradict each other. In some societies, loudly praising yourself is arrogance. In others, it is expected. In some cultures, eye contact is respect. In others, it is a challenge. Same species, same brain, completely different outputs. That is sociology in a nutshell. The input is human. The output is shaped by the invisible machine of society. And the machine runs differently everywhere. Okay, But here's where it stops being abstract and starts being about your actual life. Social constructs. You have heard this phrase. You may have seen it in an argument online where someone says something is just a social construct, and then everyone gets mad. So let's be precise about this, because both sides of that argument are usually wrong. A social construct is a concept that exists because humans collectively agreed it exists, and that agreement shapes real-world behavior. Money is the classic example. A dollar bill is literally a piece of paper. It has no inherent value. But because 8 billion people behave as though it has value, as though it can buy things, represent labor, secure futures, it does. The agreement makes it real. The construct has teeth. Race is a social construct, too. And this is the one where people get the most confused. Saying race is a social construct does not mean the lived experiences of racial groups aren't real. It means the biological category is not as solid as it was once claimed to be. The genetic variation between what we call races is actually smaller than variation within them. But the social reality of race, the way it shapes opportunity, treatment, wealth, safety, that is extremely, devastatingly real. The construct is imaginary. The consequences are not. That is the trap of social constructs. They're made up. And they will still shape your entire life. Now, you've got individuals. You've got norms. You've got culture and social constructs. Stack it all up and what do you get? N! You get stratification, which is a fancy word for not everyone is on the same level. And society is not shy about it. Every society that has ever existed on this planet, every single one, has had some form of hierarchy. Some system of who's on top and who's on the bottom. This is so universal that sociologists treat it almost like a law of social physics. You get enough humans together, and stratification emerges. It's like entropy, but for power. So how does it work? N. Think of it like layers. You've got the most visible layer, economic class. How much money do you have? How much do you make? What do your material conditions look like? Marx, back in the 1800s, said this was basically everything, that all of social life flows from the economic relationship between those who own stuff and those who have to work for the people who own stuff. And he was not wrong about the observation. He was describing something real. Whether his solution was correct is a different video. But here's where it gets more complicated. Because Max Weber, another founding figure, don't worry, this isn't a history class, said wait, class is not the only axis. You also have status, social prestige, the respect and reputation a group holds in society. And you have power, political and legal influence, the ability to make rules and enforce them. 3 separate axes. And you can be high on one and low on another. A famous artist can have status and no money. A small-town local government official can have power and no status. A celebrity can have money and status and 0 political power. It's a 3-dimensional game, and most people are playing it without knowing the rules. And the rules change depending on your category. This is what sociologists call intersectionality, a term you've definitely heard used as a buzzword, but its actual meaning is useful. Your social position is not one-dimensional. You are a combination of categories: gender, race, class, age, sexuality, disability status, and each of those categories has a different amount of social weight depending on the context you're in. They stack. They interact. Sometimes they amplify each other. Sometimes they cancel out. The point is that you can't understand someone's social reality by looking at one axis alone. Society is doing math on all of them simultaneously. Now, zoom out. All of this, norms, culture, constructs, stratification, it all gets enforced and reproduced by institutions. And this is the part where you realize how deep the rabbit hole goes. Institutions are the big organized structures that carry society's rules from one generation to the next. The family, education, religion, government, media, the economy. These are not buildings. They are systems, and their job whether anyone consciously designed them to do this or not, is to take each new wave of humans and stamp them with the values, roles, and expectations of the current social order. School is the best example. You think school is about math and reading, and it is. But it's also about teaching you to sit still, follow directions, respect authority, compete with your peers, meet deadlines, and perform tasks on a schedule set by someone else. Sociologists call this the hidden curriculum. The stuff being taught that nobody put on the syllabus. And it's training you for participation in a specific kind of society. Whether that's good or bad is genuinely a real debate. The point is, it's happening. And you were not consulted. Here's the thing. Every institution produces what sociologists call social reproduction. The wealthy send their kids to schools with better resources, building networks that lead to better opportunities. The children inherit not just money, but social capital, connections, cultural fluency, access that is worth as much as money, sometimes more. Meanwhile, the cycle runs the same on the other side. Not because anyone is evil. Because the system is built in a way that tends to reproduce itself. The machine doesn't need a driver. It runs on its own momentum. And here is where we come back to where we started. That concert. All those people moving together without a plan. What you're seeing when you see a crowd is not chaos. It's an emergent system. A pattern that appears when enough individual units interact under the same invisible rules. Society itself is that pattern. Scaled up to billions. Running across centuries. The individual thinks they're making free choices. And they are within a space of options that was shaped before they were born, by forces they never consented to, maintained by institutions they were embedded in before they could speak. Does that mean free will is fake? Does that mean your choices don't matter? No. That's not what sociology says. Sociology says your choices are real, and they matter, and they are always made inside a structure. The structure is not destiny, but it is gravity. You can jump. You will come back down. So here's the question that sociology still hasn't fully answered, that nobody has. If society is a system that tends to reproduce itself, that installs its values before you can resist them, that runs on rules nobody consciously chose, can it actually be changed? Not reformed at the edges. Fundamentally transformed. And if it can, who gets to decide what it becomes? Because that decision is also being made inside a social structure. With all its invisible biases, power dynamics, and competing interests. We live in a society. We just still don't know who's in charge of it. If almost everything you value, believe, and choose is just background software installed by a society you didn't choose, does your actual free will even exist? Or are you just a highly sophisticated meat robot? Drop your existential crisis in the comments below, and let me know what you think. And if you want to keep pulling back the curtain on reality, make sure to subscribe before the algorithm decides for you.